Well, now's as good a time as any to review the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer, I guess. Yay. I am pretending this movie doesn't exist for the sake of my health because its existence makes me very sad for the state of Star Wars. But, I have to be an informed hater, I guess, so may as well check it out. God, I'm not expecting this to be anything more than a Grogu toy commercial, perhaps with some Galaxy's Edge product placement sprinkled throughout. So yeah, my expectations are low, to say the least. If you're excited about this movie, that's great for you, but I am not. So yeah, you can tell me to kill myself now, I guess. Anyway, on to the trailer. All right, first remember Star Wars thing, we've got an R2 unit because, well, of course. This one is red though, so it's not R2-D2. But remember R2-D2, guys, you like him.
Hey, never touch the buttons.
Somehow the Razor Crest returned, but this time with yellow stripes to sell different toys. C-3PO's red arm all over again, Jesus Christ. One of the last relatively emotional scenes in this series before it went off the f***ing rails was the destruction of the Razor Crest in season 2, if not just for, the sheer shock of it all. But I guess that means nothing now. This is not the first instance of sacrifice and tragedy and loss, meaning literally nothing and having no emotional resonance in this show, not to mention Disney Star Wars in general. So, I can't wait to see who or what else somehow returns in this movie and undoes genuine growth and character evolution. I'm not exaggerating when I say I've literally seen more meaningful and lasting development for these characters in AO3 fanfiction. But don't ask why I've engaged with Mandalorian fanfic. Shut up!
I can use some information.
Whoa, for this price, I'll tell you whatever you want.
I'm looking for a hut.
Close for the night. Thank you.
Okay, now we're on some kind of city planet. Coruscant would normally be the obvious shout, but since we are apparently looking for a hut, I'm gonna guess this is actually Nar Shaddaa, which would kind of be cool, I guess. And based on this interaction here, I'm gonna guess that the hut in question is in fact Rada, aka Da Bear. So I guess he's, baddie number 1 in this movie. I also did read before watching this trailer that apparently this Ardenian is voiced by none other than Martin Scorsese, which is hilarious and also kind of tragic. I guess this counts as a solo reference since the only other Ardenian of consequence to my knowledge is Jon Favreau, but yeah, there's shark tail everywhere for those with eyes to see.
Gangsters.
Oh my god, guys, it's the twins from the critically acclaimed book of Boba Fett. Oh my god. Mandoverse happening before our very eyes, folks. Oh boy.
War criminals.
Long live the Empire.
Okay, now we've got some kind of Imperial holdout group guarded by snowtroopers on a snowy planet. I believe this main guy was part of the Shadow Council as seen in season 3 advising Moff Gideon, but I couldn't for the life of me tell you his name or significance. And based on the previous teasers, including that stupid ass Super Bowl ad spot with tauntauns, and the first teaser that went out of its way to show you this AT-AT collapsing on another snowy planet, I'm going to take a wild guess and say this is actually unironically happening on Hoth, since apparently they really want you to know there are a lot of Hoth things in this movie. If they can come up with an actual diegetic reason for Imperial activity on Hoth, where the Empire famously took somewhat of an L back in the day, I may be interested, but at this point, I'm rather dubious that this is going to serve any function beyond reminding you as a paying customer of a far superior movie.
We'll take out every bad guy in your deck of cards.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that the premise of Mando doing New Republic good guy bounty hunting is pretty much confirmed. It's really no secret at this point that this movie was cobbled together from various scripts of episodes for hypothetical season 4, which I'm assuming now would have just been a structural return to season 1 in that Mando is a bounty hunter again, and all of that Darksaber retaking Mandalore, Bo-Katan cameo, Lizzo planet bullshit was ultimately a side quest for him, wherein he was relegated to a side character in his own show. So, going back to season 1, that all meant nothing, I guess. They did kind of just let Din and Grogu take over the Boba Fett show so that Bo-Katan could take over the Din and Grogu show. And now there's really, their arc wrapped up there. So there's nothing really left for them to do. So I guess, yeah, they can just kind of around and be bounty hunters again with no consequence. That's awesome. I will say in this scene, I do actually think it's kind of cool that the targets are given to him in what looks like sabacc cards, or at least in that shape. It's a little detail that makes like this kind of bounty hunting for the New Republic premise somewhat more analog and maybe off record and shady, which I like, and suggests that there just might be some attempt at examining the New Republic's dysfunction / questionable morality, which I would genuinely be interested in. And I also hope this means they're doing it with chain codes as a concept, because we're so fucking stupid. Good God, he's so fine. Sorry, I want to enjoy all Mandalorian media solely because he's hot, but god damn, do Dave and John make it difficult. Okay, now we've got a U-Wing landing on a beachy planet. This is not Rogue One, by the way. Obviously, this isn't Scarif, and obviously U-Wings are not unique to Rogue One at this point. But I'm going to go ahead and say that this is actually probably a Delphi, which is an established New Republic Outer Rim outpost as seen in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, where we meet characters such as Zeb and Carson Teva. I'll go back to Zeb in a second, unfortunately, but I do actually like what Carson Teva represents in theory and his function in the show in demonstrating this bureaucratic drudgery of the New Republic and their ineffectuality in solving real problems as he sees them, I guess. And again, as I've already mentioned, they seem to be hinting at this being somewhat of a recurring theme or plot point in the movie, which I would genuinely be interested in, and I also think is entirely necessary at this point to explore in depth, since the sequels decided that the First Order was just somehow able to clandestinely form in this time period. This is not to say that it's the responsibility of extraneous media to fix the mind-bogglingly broken world building of the sequel trilogy, because it is absolutely not. But this movie is ultimately still part of the capital C canon that Disney is responsible for defining. So it does have to maintain congruity even with inexplicable turns of events, and has actually primed itself pretty perfectly to fill a gaping hole in the overall world building of the capital C canon that's already intrinsic to its apparent narrative scope and structure. I actually hope that the movie takes this opportunity to dive deeper into this, using this peripherality on Adelphi to do so via Teva again, or Mando himself, or Sigourney Weaver, or whomever. This would of course make for actually interesting content, so I'm sure Filoni will go out of his way to avoid it at all costs, but one can dream.
This isn't about revenge. It's about preventing another war.
Okay, so Sigourney Weaver says, I presume, of eliminating Imperial affiliates, that it isn't about revenge, it's about preventing another war, which again is an interesting philosophical sentiment, and posits the New Republic as a sort of ambiguous political entity, even though they are, the ostensible good guys of the universe. But, they have demonstrably replicated some of the worst bureaucratic structures of the old regime to achieve this purportedly ontologically opposite goal. And as, again, I really need to beat in the point, because I truly, truly, truly hope the movie does something with this. Having the film provide a glimpse into the New Republic's motivations, morals, and sort of logical gymnastics to justify their mirroring of the Empire's means to an entirely different end would be interesting and useful for the world building as a whole. But again, I'm not going to get my hopes up because that would take away screen time from Grogu. Also, this looks like the hut crib from earlier and is also just architecturally Jabba's palace copy and pasted into a different biome. So I'm going to go ahead and say pretty definitively that this is indeed Nal Hutta and the previous planet is indeed Nar Shaddaa, and that a significant portion of this movie will be taking place in hut space, which admittedly will be kind of cool to see in live action. I sound like a Filoni slop consumer. Oh my god.
Strap in.
Okay, well, ignoring the very obvious fact that they have a helmetless shot to prove to everyone that Pedro Pascal actually showed up to set this time, that his role isn't entirely ADR, I don't think the whole Mandalorian helmet removal really means much of anything anymore post season 3, where all the ideological implications of it just became so muddied and inconsistent and selectively applicable based on who is doing what at what time. So I don't think this is really going to mean anything. Yeah, I mean, good for Pedro for coming to set this time, I guess.
You will suffer.
Oh Christ, it's Embo. Here we go with the Clone Wars cameos. Fine, it makes sense to have other bounty hunters show up in the bounty hunting movie in theory, but the last time they did this flavor of Clone Wars key jangling was with Cad Bane in the Book of Boba Fett, which I should probably just refer to as Mando season 2.5 at this point. And if I remember correctly, Cad Bane did precisely nothing and then died. So I can't say I have any expectations for Embo serving a greater purpose beyond visual reference in a very Cad Bane way. He does at the very least have an established history with the Hutts. So, you know, there is some narrative potential for him to go back to working for the twins or whoever to stop Mando before he can get to Jeremy Allen White. But, you know, we'll see.
And then it will be his turn.
Damn!
Before going into harm's way, check your armor.
Okay, giving Grogu armor is fine, I guess, but like, he already wears armor. He has that little symbolically significant chainmail set, but you know, I guess this little plate is much more marketable than chainmail that goes under his robe and isn't visible. So, more toys, anyone? Oh boy. So I knew there were going to be Anzellans in this movie based on the previous promo material and also their appearance in season 3 of the show where they reanimate IG-11's corpse to be piloted by Grogu. Jesus fucking Christ. So I'm not surprised. I'm just, you know, disappointed. Again, I have to question if they're actually going to serve any functional purpose in this movie or if they're here for this just a little guy off with Grogu in a marketing ploy to appeal to millennial women with magic keys specifically. I guarantee this will be drawn upon endlessly for Chud merch and Star Traders and Tomorrowland that'll say like cutest in the galaxy or some And so I'm gonna get ahead of the Disney merch team here and well, my Etsy dropship store will soon be open.
The kid will live centuries beyond me. I won't always be around to protect him.
That's a good point, Shoddy. You sound like you care about it at least. Listen, no hate to Pedro, but every single Din line delivery sounds the exact same. There's truly no emotion conveyed in any of his lines, which again, everyone knows that he's pretty much all ADR in the show, with save for a few scenes where he, you know, like actually kind of acts his ass off when his face is on camera. But this seems like it should be kind of taking an emotional toll on him in some way or another. And that's just not, I don't buy that it is. This could, you know, make for an interesting emotional arc and give them something to do and something to grow from. But, you know, I can really only picture Pedro Pascal reading this half-heartedly off his couch or something. So I just don't buy it. I don't know. Remember Stinky? This is him now. Feel old yet? This has got to be, I think, the craziest shout for the Filoniverse in this entire movie, because like, who the hell was actually wondering what baby Jabba is up to these days? And obviously on a purely visual level, this whole scene is very derivative of Return of the Jedi, but they're getting a little Ryan Johnson subversive with it, because this time there's a hut in the ring You're so clever, Dave. Wow.
Are you scared? You should be.
Okay, this miscellaneous unk of a species I do not recognize seems to be doing a Yoda callback, because Yoda basically says this exact thing to Luke in Empire. But, you know, new species maybe? Cool, I guess. Wow, cool, a dragon snake. This is another Empire reference, technically, because even though you can't really see it, a dragon snake attacks R2 on Dagobah. And also makes for, shocker, another Clone Wars reference, because Obi-Wan fights a dragon snake that looks pretty much exactly like this on Nal Hutta. And this is fine, I guess, especially assuming most of the movie will be taking place on Nal Hutta. Yeah, I guess this checks out. It certainly looks cool. I hope it has some significance given that prevalence of style over substance in Star Wars media of recent past.
Do we run?
Guys, it's Zeb. Holy shit, it's Zeb from the Rebel Show. Wow, it's Zeb. Remember Zeb, guys? I know Filoni creamed himself over this. I truly don't give a fuck about Rebels, so I really don't give a fuck that Zeb is in this movie. I do, however, give a fuck about what he represents more generally as an instantiation of Filoni's masturbatory cinematic universe of his various OCs, and that pisses me off, clearly. So I believe that he is, well, Filoni / Favreau OC number 5 to make an appearance at this point, which is, you know, exactly what I expected this movie to be. So moving on.
Or do we fight?
Is this a fucking Rise of Skywalker reference? Please, please, no. Oh my god, no.
I like this kid.
F off. Baby Greedo. Baby f***ing Greedo. I hope you sell 1 billion toys, Dave. McQuunky. Now hold up, back up. Is that a Mantelian Savrip of Dejeric fame? This is, wow, we've got a real life hollow chess piece here because, well, you know, that's from A New Hope. Wow. I do recall in the previous teaser, they have this guy come into the not Return of the Jedi arena in like a not Rancor kind of way. So I'm guessing this whole scene is happening outside wherever Rada is, probably, you know, somewhere on Nar Shaddaa, given the hut of it all, but I don't really care. I don't really give a baby f***ing Greedo.
What are you waiting for?
Goo goo gaga, Baby Yoda steals Baby Greedo's stroller outside of Baby Jabba's playpen. I have no f***ing words for this. Please buy toys. I hate to be nitpicky already. Actually, I don't. Who am I kidding? But who designed this? Like, what even is this? It's a stroller for an infant, and yet is capable of being piloted at dangerously high speeds by these infants. What the f***? This franchise is becoming f***ing Mario Kart before our very eyes. Jesus Christ.
Let's save the rest for after dinner.
God, he's just so okay, well, that's the official trailer. I can honestly say I've never been less invested in a Star Wars project than this. As I've mentioned, it has promised to explore previously untapped but diegetically critical elements of the greater world building, namely the New Republic's failures between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. It seems that given the aesthetic of the title card and the poster and the, you know, repurposed season 4 of it all, that there is some attempt being made to return to the bounty hunting structure, maybe slightly narrower in scope portrayal of the world / criminal underworld. But I just don't have faith that any of it's going to amount to anything. The film's dominant commercial ethos of launching the Mandoverse to make more subpar spin-off media and sell toys just kills any shreds of hope I have that this movie is going to contribute anything of value to the world building and the canon. I'm not saying that this has to be like, Andor level political thriller, but there are undeniably intriguing things already intrinsic to the premise of the movie that could and should be expanded upon. I just don't trust that the writers value that level of storytelling over putting Grogu into a cute off with Babu Frick. On a meta level, though, I think this movie is kind of inherently doomed because its audience is essentially limited to Disney Plus subscribers who can be bothered to care about a story and characters that haven't been interesting in years. For general audience members that don't have Disney Plus accounts and are wondering why they should care about these characters that don't exist outside of a paid streaming service, this trailer has little substance that could capture their attention since it's so referential of Filoni and Favreau projects that are also still relegated to Disney Plus. As the continuation of a show that the average consumer probably has not bothered to start or gotten all the way through, why would anyone that isn't up to date on their homework, so to speak, going to be compelled to see this movie? The trailer is full of images and characters and references that Star Wars autists such as myself can soy jack emote to, but is literally anyone else going to see a half second of Zeb or Embo or Baby Greedo and be like, wow, it's Glepshido himself. I also think in general, the entire Mandalorian brand has just long overstayed its welcome at this point. We're approaching 7 entire years since the series premiered, and the cultural phenomenon of Grogu should definitely have come and gone by now. But, obviously Disney disagrees and will continue to market the life out of this poor guy until the end of time. Not to mention that the absolutely abysmal drop in quality between the first and third seasons should have alienated most self-respecting consumers and tanked the reputability of the show as a brand / offshoot of the greater Star Wars brand. I guess ultimately, does anyone give a about the Mandalorian anymore, Star Wars diehard or otherwise? I just don't think that the name alone holds enough cultural capital at this point to draw in audiences put off by the cinematic universe of it all. Like, I will be there because sunk cost fallacy, but as a researcher rather than a fan, like most people with a morbid curiosity about the desiccated corpse of this franchise. I guess what I'm ultimately getting at here is any of the hype for this movie, and there isn't that much to begin with, but is any of the hype for this movie for the movie itself, or is it all borrowed from the Star Wars brand name? Which, again, what does Star Wars hype even mean anymore these days with Disney Plus? This movie is going to be a paid subscriber key jangling circle jerk for Filoni acolytes and not much else, because really that's all Star Wars is now. I'd argue the Star Wars name itself doesn't really hold any cultural capital anymore because of projects like The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and the one that shall not be named, and of Disney's incessance and obsession with the same 3 characters and time periods and attempts at subversion and cinematic universification and ultimately just oversaturation. This movie is the culmination of a severe and off-putting oversaturation of Star Wars into the media landscape of the last decade. And aside from Andor, which was a miracle as far as I'm concerned, not a single one of these products that they've been churning out has been memorable, interesting, or contributed to the greater overarching story in any meaningful or at least non-destructive way. And I truly don't think that anything short of divine intervention is going to make this insipid movie any different. I desperately want this movie to tank so that maybe they'll just consider making it all stop for a few years at least. And that's about all I can stomach for now. I'll be back with my complete thoughts on the movie sometime in May or June or whenever I can be bothered to go see it. I'll get to it when I get to it, I guess. In the meantime, I have been working on a ranking / review of this movie's 11 precedents of feature-length live-action Star Wars films, with plenty more negativity and nitpicks in my analyses of those, so stay tuned for that. I swear I do actually like this franchise, but by God, is it fun to just be mean about it. Anyways, till next time, I guess.